What is going on, snooker fans? Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another World Snooker Championship video. In this video I'm going to recap the last 16 of this year's World Championship and look ahead to what my predictions are for the quarterfinals over the next couple of days. Now, it kind of felt like the second round was a little bit of a damp squid. We had a really good first round with, 4 deciders, a few more 10-8s, seeds falling left and right. There was plenty of drama in the first round. The second round was kind of just sort of fading away. Not much was happening. But all of that changed last night, and it was just another reminder, as if you need any, as to why not only the World Championship, but the World Championship at the Crucible is so special. That session last night with Higgins and Allen and Lazowski and Bingham was up there with one of the best nights the sport's ever produced. I remember 2 years ago, something very similar. In this round, you had Jack Lazowski and Neil Robertson play out a decider where Neil Robertson had made a 147 coming back at Jack, but Jack then got over the line. And at the very same time on the other table, you had Judd Trump and Anthony McGill play out an absolute thriller there as well. And it was very similar vibes last night. For most sessions, that Jack Lazowski-Stuart Bingham match would have been front and centre, but all of the attention was stolen by just the incredible finale of Higgins and Allen. Not only the clearance Higgins made to win the match, but just the overall quality of that match was incredible. And just when you start to doubt the World Championship, it'll always deliver. But enough about that. Let's just go straight into the draw for the quarterfinals. And what we start with is David Gilbert again. And in this match, we have a guarantee that at least one qualifier will be in the semi-finals this year. We have 2 players who have had pretty poor seasons but are finishing very strongly indeed here. Dave Gilbert, he followed up his win over defending champion Luke Brissell by completely dismantling Robert Milkins to make it through to his second ever Crucible quarterfinal. It was a performance very similar to his first round where it took him a little while to settle, but once he did, he really did start to motor. Milkins, of course, was very poor, and it sounded like he had a slight injury which didn't help him. But you always fancied Dave to be far too strong, and that is exactly what happened. Then we've got Stephen Maguire, and that performance from Maguire, to be honest, was exactly what I expected. Just like he did in their Crucible meeting 2 years ago, he looked completely locked in from ball 1, and never really let up. It has to be said Shaun Murphy never really found any fluency in that match, but Maguire also said that the fist pumps fired him up even more. And I have to be honest, I've never understood why players and fans of snooker get so worked up about players showing a little bit of emotion. We must be the only sport in the world where a small fist bump causes so much controversy. But obviously, in this case, it was more of a hindrance than helpful for Murphy, whose inconsistent season has finished with a little bit of a whimper. But this match though, this quarterfinal here, promises to be a real cracker. And with what's at stake for 2 men who don't find themselves in this position too often, you can probably expect this to be quite a nervy quarterfinal. They've only ever played each other 5 times before, Stephen Maguire leading 3-2 in that regard. However, easily their biggest match was 4 years ago at the Masters, which Dave Gilbert won 6-2 in the quarterfinals. And I think for me, the main question mark I have over this match is Stephen Maguire put absolutely everything into that match against Murphy, and he is going to have to reset and go again, which is not always easy to do. You often hear the phrase that an underdog has won their cup final when beating a higher seed player or a higher seed team early in a tournament, and then they kind of fall away afterwards, and Stephen needs to guard himself from doing that. This really does feel like a coin toss, and even though I think Stephen has performed slightly better out of the 2 this tournament, I'm getting a hunch that he might just run out of steam here. So my prediction in this first quarterfinal is David Gilbert to win 13-10. The second quarterfinal sees John Higgins play Kyle Wilson. Not only is this a match between 2 of the sport's biggest hitters, it also represents the only quarterfinal this year contested by 2 seeded players. And look, without knowing the actual stats of this, I would wager that that doesn't happen too frequently at the Crucible. Both men will also know that they will definitely be playing a qualifier in the semi-finals. And no matter who wins out of Gilbert or Maguire, the winner of this match here will be a firm favourite to reach the final. And that could add a little bit of extra pressure here. And let's start with John Higgins, and I've mentioned it already, but that clearance he made to win the decide against Mark Allen is going to be one of those breaks that is just talked about for many, many years to come. You know, the bottle to go for that double and then clear up is something very few players in the game possess. And I think what makes it even more impressive is the fact that Higgins has fallen short in the majority of the matches he's played against the fellow top players in the world over recent years. And it looked like that was going to be a similar story here. But that clearance was just sheer class, you know, as was the mini clearance as well he made in the frame before to force the decider. The win also stopped Higgins from dropping out of the top 16 for the first time in almost 30 years, which is another mind-boggling stat for one of the game's all-time greats. And his reward for that amazing clearance is another mammoth tie, this time against Kyron Wilson. Kyron, well, it has to be said, he's been pretty savage so far in this tournament. No player has conceded less than the 7 frames Kyron has dropped so far, and although the opposition haven't yet been able to give him much of a test in his opening couple of rounds, he has been extremely clinical and looking like a man who will be very, very difficult to stop in this tournament. Ultimately, the question I have in this match is, what effect has that win had on Higgins? On one hand, you could argue that amazing clearance could just be the spark he needs to kick on and do something very, very special this year. To counter that, you can't deny that the win last night would have taken a lot out of him emotionally, and he probably didn't get to sleep until the early hours of the morning. And the challenge he now has is coming all the way back down to 0 and going again against a player who is very similar to Allen in a lot of aspects. One huge positive for Higgins, though, is that these two have played each other 3 times at the Crucible, and Higgins has won all 3 of them, including a comprehensive 13-2 win last year in round 2. And that is something that cannot be discounted here. If Higgins starts slowly with, the effects of last night, then Wilson will need to sort of get a big lead going into the final sessions. But Higgins could also come out with the mindset that he should have been out last night, so he almost has nothing to lose. I really don't know which way this is going to go. I initially was leaning towards Kyron, but that head-to-head cannot be ignored. Kyron also hasn't been tested yet, so we have no real guidance to see how his game will stand up to the pressure of a close finish, which is something I do think we're going to get here. I predicted Higgins to lose both matches this week, and he's proved me wrong. And just like I did for Bingham, I might need to start learning my lessons here. So I'm going to go for a decider, and I'm going to go for Higgins to win it again. So my prediction is John Higgins to win 13-12. Moving into the bottom half of the draw now, and there remains a very strong possibility that the 2 players of the season will meet in the semi-finals. And it'll be fitting if they do, but they both need to get past their respective qualifiers to set up that mouth-watering tie. Starting with Judd, well, he's had pretty serene progress so far in the tournament, and he's gotten past 2 potential banana skins with the absolute minimum of fuss. Again, he wasn't at his absolute best in his second round, but as we get into the second week, I fully fancy Judd to start coming alive here. He's only conceded 12 frames so far, so he'll be very fresh, and also safe in the knowledge that he has at least 2 or 3 gears still to go through over the remainder of this tournament. And here he'll be playing Jack Jones, and for Jack, he's followed up his quarterfinal last year on his debut with another incredible run to the quarterfinals again this year, which is hugely impressive, and he is the first player since Matthew Stevens to make back-to-back quarterfinals on each of his first 2 Crucible appearances. I don't think Jack has played anywhere near his best, or at least anywhere near to the level that he played last year, but it is to his credit that he is still getting results here, and looks like someone who could be cut from the same cloth as someone like an Anthony McGill, whose game looks tailor-made for the World Championship. The obvious thing to say looking at this match is that Jack needs to improve to stand any chance here, but I do think that he will. His match against C was sort of a 50-50, but he'll come into this match as a heavy underdog, and you would expect that'll help him relax, much like it did last year when he played Ali Carter, Neil Robertson and Mark Allen. Ultimately though, I feel like Judd is simmering, and at some point he is going to have one of those performances where no one can touch him, and it might just happen here. There is an argument to say Jack's slower, more measured approach might frustrate Judd, But I don't think Judd gets flustered by that style of match anymore. The only way you can put pressure on Judd is to score heavy, and so far Jack has just made 9 breaks over 50, with his highest break in the tournament so far being 78. And as Judd has shown multiple times already in this tournament alone, if you don't kill a frame off against him, he'll come back and he'll make a clearance to steal it from you. All this is really to say, I think Jack will improve, but getting close to Judd here feels like a step too far for him, so my prediction is Judd Trump to win a 13-7. Much like Judd, Ronnie hasn't really hit anywhere near top stride yet in this tournament, but he has still comfortably made it through to his 22nd Crucible quarterfinal, only dropping 8 frames along the way. It's not been flawless, and there has been the odd easy miss in him every now and then, but neither Jackson Page nor Ryan Day were able to put up much resistance, and we know that once he gets on top of you, he's almost impossible to pull back. What I think can safely be said here though is that he will receive a much sterner examination of his game in this quarterfinal. Stuart Bingham was on the cusp of not reaching the Crucible on multiple occasions in the qualifiers, but he has put together 2 very solid performances to dispatch Gary Wilson and Jack Lisowski last night, in a match that was slightly overshadowed by Higgins Allen, but was just as compelling to watch. The head-to-head between the pair is absolutely littered with matches at Triple Crown events. This will be the 8th time they've played at either the UK Championship, the Masters or the World Championship, and it will be their 4th Crucible meeting too. O'Sullivan won their first 2 Crucible meetings in 2009 in the first round and the quarterfinals in 2013, before Bingham got his revenge at this very stage 9 years ago on his way to winning the title. So should come into this match safe in the knowledge that he's been there and done it against Ronnie. O'Sullivan, of course, has been a different animal this season, but like I say, he hasn't been flawless, and Bingham won't let him off the hook as easily as Page and Day have. However, much like Judd, you do fancy Ronnie to start firing soon, and he'll be fully aware of the danger that Bingham presents here. The way I see this match going is I can see the first session and a half being pretty close, with Bingham keeping up the rocket, but I do get the feeling that Ronnie might just be able to sort of get some breathing room towards the end of the match and pull away, so I'm going to predict here O'Sullivan to win 13-9. And with that concludes my predictions for this year's quarterfinals. My success rate in the first round was 50%. My success rate in the second round went up to 75%. So by that logic, I should be getting all 4 of these right, but I'll probably get all 4 of them wrong. There's so much still to look forward to in this tournament. This is no disrespect to Stuart Bingham or Jack Jones, but the idea of potentially having O'Sullivan v Trump in the semi-finals is so exciting, and both would absolutely deserve that chance to play each other. 5 titles each. They've been the standout players of the entire season. So it would be so fitting, like I say, to have them play it out on the one table setup at the Crucible. But they've got 2 tests to get through there. And in, the top half as well, you've got a guaranteed qualifier in the semi-finals. Kyan Wilson potentially warming himself up to a first world title. And Higgins, well, he could be about to get his first world title for 13 years. So many storylines still to go. I can't wait to watch the quarterfinals. And yeah, I'll be back to predict the semi-finals and beyond. Cheers.